Hey, take out this sheet of paper, flip over the back side, which is white like this, all right? Here's what I want you to do with it. If you could pick your own superpower, what would you pick? You know, the Avengers Endgame was like either the top or second highest movie of all time in terms of what it produced, in terms of the revenue that it generated, which is all about the superheroes and their superpowers. The top grossing films of all time have to do with that whole series. There's something about us that gravitate towards wanting to be something other than we are, and most of those films have to do with somebody having some sort of extra special power or ability. All I'm asking you this morning is, if you could pick your own superpower, what would you pick? What would you have for yourself? Okay? So, just jot it down there, right? What would you have? When I surveyed this week, I just Googled, hey, what are the top 5? What are the coolest? What are the best superpowers? That people, when they've done the surveys, like I just asked you, what people have said they would like to have if they could. What comes to mind? Probably what's on your list. That's what I'm just sort of curious about. What did you put down? Somebody give me one. What would your superpower be if you could have one? Teleport. Say what? Teleport. One more time. I'm deaf. Teleport. Like the ability to go, like leave here and go somewhere else, right? Okay, cool. Somebody else.
They said fly.
Yes. Thank you. Flying was on the list.
I want to understand animal thoughts.
And that was somewhere on the list. It was just farther down. It really was curious. It was I was like, really? Who would want that for a superpower? Like, know what your dog is thinking, right? But I mean, no, but when you think of all the ones you could pick, like, do you really care what your dog is thinking? But I did, yes, right? Somebody, man, I was seriously listening on the radio this week, and they were like, oh, if your dog does this, it's thinking this, and I'm like, how do you know? I mean, did you talk to your animal? Like, doc, you know? Okay. Anyways, invisible. Anybody have invisible? That was like second highest on this site that I Googled. Strength. Be really strong. My son is in powerlifting right now. He thinks that he is going to be able to deadlift 500 pounds by the end of the year. I can't fathom there's two things going on there, right? And I totally mean this in all sincerity because I had lunch with him this week. I was talking about it. So how do you use that? How does lifting 500 pounds help you in life? But to be able to get 500 pounds on a bar and lift that puppy up and hold it is a big deal, right? That's a speed. Be really fast. Go from here to there very quickly. Anybody move objects by thinking about them? Yeah. I would like to do that with the TV. Wouldn't that be cool? You could change channels just by thinking about it. I'm tired with golf. I want to watch softball. I want to watch baseball, right? And you don't have to, how many conflicts could be solved by where's the remote if all you had was just thinking about it? You could eliminate probably a lot of conversation with your spouse too. Hey, where's the remote, right? All right, what hasn't been mentioned? What superpower would you like? Yeah. To be able to heal. Yes, in the back. Speak. Yes. Somebody else. You know what I noticed when I Googled what the superpowers? Not one superpower, not one special ability could I find on any website that had to do with, are you ready? Character. Not one. Nobody wishes that they could be more pure. No one wishes that they could be more kind. No one wishes they could be more thoughtful. No one wishes they could be more loving. There's no superpower that says, hey, I wish I could bless people more. No, it all has to do with your physical attributes or some variation thereof, and I thought that was interesting. Today I want to talk to you about a superpower that each of you have. You just don't know it. You do not recognize it for what it is, right? And that is the power of your words, okay? Did I leave it? Is it there? Is the remote there? It is there. Proverbs 18:21 says that, in fact, if you have a Bible, if you would turn there, Proverbs 18:21 says that the tongue has the power of life and death. The tongue, that thing in your mouth, has within it the ability to give life and to take life. And don't for a moment dismiss that as rhetoric. Did you catch the headline this week of a 14-year-old girl that was having some issues, and in the presence of a deputy, she took out a handgun and she took her life? And when they went to her journals, they were filled with the hate thoughts that her friends and others said about her, to the point that it drove her to want to end her life. And you don't have to go far in time that almost every week you could find somebody who is ready to end their life or has ended their life because of the words of others. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me is a lie. Absolute garbage. And I'm going to illustrate in just a moment how many of you, though there's not many of us in here today, how many of you have been hurt by not sticks and stones, but by what somebody has said about you. I'm curious to see if it's true. Death, the tongue has the power of life and death. You have a superpower when you walk out of here. You could begin to use your superpower to build people up or tear them down. But you just don't think about it that way. You just think about living life, right? And so I think Solomon in wanting to talk about speech and language and our words understood how influential they are. Any Ryder Cup fans here? Anybody? Okay, if you're watching the Ryder Cup, what happened yesterday that made the news?
Rory.
What about Rory?
Blew up.
Wasn't about the golf. It was about the heated exchange that one of the golfers had with a caddy as they were leaving the clubhouse. That's what's making the news. Words were exchanged. between a caddy and one of the more popular golfers on the tour. And that's what all the headlines were. With the biggest golf event going on. Words have power to give life. Words have power to take life. And that's what I want you to understand today. Your tongue has the ability to build people up or tear them down. You can walk out of here this week and be an encouragement to somebody, or you can be a detriment to somebody. And you don't need to be wearing a cape and being able to fly to do that, right? So how do we get there? Here's what I want you, first of all, to understand, that you talk a lot. They say that the average person uses 16,000 words a day. That's generally what the studies have said. 16,000 words a day that you use on average, right? Sometimes we make fun of that women talk more than guys. They haven't necessarily found that to be true, but let's just, you can roll with that if you want a good punchline, all right? That's not what I'm trying to do with that. I want you to understand that you use a lot of verbiage in a given day, in a given week. Let's see here, that your words of 18,000 words, when I did the math, that would be 72 pages a day, double-spaced. 72 pages a day, double-spaced, is how much you speak on average. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal until, what if I said to you this? Every 5.5 days, you write one of these. Every 5.5 days, you're writing a book. What's your book saying? If I were to go read your book, what would I find? This thick. Every 6 days, you've written one. 52 of these a year. How long have you been around? How many of these will you write in the next year? 3 years. People who read your book, people who listen to what you have to say, what will they read? What will they hear? I don't mean that in any way to say, hey, that's not a guilt thing. That's hey, the pastor got up and talked about we should use our words. Hey, we talk a lot. I want you to realize this is what you do every single week. This is about 500 pages. That's what this book is. You probably couldn't read this in a week. I doubt many of you are reading 500 pages a week. Yet every week you're writing one of these. And it matters what you say. People around you take notice of what you say. I'm just saying, if this is true, if this be true, what am I saying? What are people reading? Do I have the ability to make a difference in the life of others? Any of you guys, gals, into athletics? I'm going to use a phrase. You tell me what it means. Bulletin board material. What does bulletin board material mean in the realm of athletics? It means somebody on the other team said something derogatory. They took and they printed it out and they put it on the bulletin board to motivate that team for the rest of, for the game, for the series, whatever. Happens all the time. People will say something. It'll get taken, published. Here's what they think about you. Watching the Ryder Cup this week? One of the golfers called out another golfer, said he acts childish. What's everybody talking about? Not talking about golf scores. They're talking about what he said. They're talking about the way then the next day he got his tail handed to him and getting whooped. And then even the words were, if you're going to talk big, you better bring your game. You're going to talk big and not bring your game, you ought to stay silent. Your words matter. People are listening to what comes out of your mouth. They're paying attention to what you have to say. And now it's like, all right, if that be the case, Mike, how can I use my speech to encourage people, to make a difference in someone's life, versus maybe leave them indifferent or worse? Our words have, what I say, the ability to tear people down Let's see if I can make this work here. Is it there? Our words either tear people down, and one of the ways we do that is with gossip. Solomon talks a lot about gossip in Proverbs. If I just go to Proverbs 6, if you have an app or your Bible, will you go to Proverbs 6? It's a passage that's familiar for some who've grown up in church. There are 6 things the Lord hates. 7 things are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, or let's just say a proudful look, arrogance. A lying tongue. Hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wickedness. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. A false witness who pours out lies. And a man who stirs up dissension among his brothers. I know what God loves and hates. God hates it when we use our words to divide. Basically, gossip means to spread rumors about someone. They might be true, they might be half-truths. But you are using your words to pass along to others things that may or may not be true with the intent to harm somebody else. That's your whole intent. You're not trying to help. You're not trying to build up. You're trying to maybe show like what you know, feel a little bit better about yourself. Because I ask myself, why do people gossip? Why is celebrity gossip a big deal? People Magazine, TMZ, the TV shows that are on, all about the gossip, what's going on in people's lives. Why is that a big deal? Because you feel like you're in the know. You feel like you're knowledgeable about something that maybe somebody else isn't. You've got the scoop. You've got the inside stuff, and you're going to pass along. You're going to maybe build yourself up. You're going to look a little better, aren't you? Because you're not a jerk like that person. You would never do what that person... Did you hear what they did? Did you hear what they said? I can't believe that. Right? Those who gossip to you, I found this to be true. I bet you have too. Those who gossip to you are probably the same ones who will gossip about you behind your back. You just think in the moment when they're talking to you, they're your friend. If they will gossip to you, they will gossip about you. Solomon says, whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. You're an idiot. You really are a dumb call. The word fool there is as strong as it sounds like. You just are lacking sense. The person who goes around talking about other people, spreading nonsense, or again, even true stuff that you don't have the right to, or business to share is an idiot, right? The other way that we tear people down is with our lies. So that's what we said there. God hates a lying, well, let me just read it again to you. God hates lying tongue, a false witness who pours out lies, verse 19. Can I ask you a question, parents? Grandparents? Why do you want your kids, do you talk to your kids about telling the truth? And if you do, why? Why is it important that you teach your children to tell the truth? Why does it matter? Because here's the interesting thing. I find this very, very curious to me right now. Never more have I felt like in a culture as adults do we tolerate lying. You just look at some of the adults and politicians in your world, flat out lying, and it's like doesn't faze you. Like, okay, well, that's just politics, that's just people. And so what I want to say to you is if your kid or your grandkid were to take the same track and giving you half-truths or bold-faced lies, would that be acceptable to you? Would you tolerate it? And if you would, okay, here's what I would say to you. At least you're being consistent. And you really ought to applaud yourself for you not being a hypocrite. If you're going to tolerate lies from adults, you're going to tolerate lies from your kids. But if you go and you would say to your kid or your grandkid, you would not put up with them lying to you, why do you put up with adults lying to you? Why does telling the truth matter? You need to think that one through. Because your kid's going to ask you, why? Why do I have to tell the truth? When you lie, why do people lie? Why do people tell half-truths? It benefits them. When you lie, you're doing it to benefit yourself. You're going to try and keep yourself out of trouble. You're going to try and make yourself look good. You're going to try and inflate yourself in front of somebody's eyes that means something to you. When you don't tell the truth, it's always to promote yourself. When you look at people in culture lying to you, it's because they're trying to promote themselves. So if your kid only wants to promote themselves, why is that wrong? Shouldn't they? Why is it okay that your kid or your grandkid looks okay in the eyes of somebody that they esteem valuable by lying? Why do you want the truth? And if you can't answer that, here's a serious challenge to you. If you don't know why it's important for your kid to tell the truth, you need to do some soul searching and really come up to grips with that. Because otherwise, this is our world in which we live. Lying is the acceptable norm now. It's not a big deal to lie. It's not. Is it okay to tell white lies? Is it okay to tell little lies that don't really have anything to do with morals? I don't know. Had it happened once, distinctly in my world, where someone told somebody else that I was not available, and I heard it. And what they were trying to do was cover my time and cover me. And I heard it. And I came out of my office and I said, I'm right here. Why did you say that? And it caused an awkwardness. I own it. It caused an awkwardness. But it was important to me in that moment to be able to say, you could just as easily say, he's not talking to anybody today. That would have been the truth. But to say I wasn't there, that wasn't true. Even for a good reason. Is that okay? Is that acceptable? Let me put it to you another way. Would you be comfortable if I lied to you? Would it be acceptable to you if in our exchange of a relationship, you found out that I was not being honest with you? Would you be okay with that? And if you say no, why wouldn't you be okay with it? Because I'm a pastor? So take away my title, I'm just a regular guy. Let me give you something to think about, why honesty matters, why Solomon made such a big deal, why God said it's one of the things that he hates is a lying tongue, right? I'm going to go through here. Gentle words are a tree of life, but a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will perish. Those are strong words that Solomon's got here. Let me make it real clear as best I can for you. Let me lay out some scenarios. Husbands and wives, are you okay with half-truths? I've already touched on parents and kids. I want to speak to you kids. Would you be okay if your parents didn't tell you the truth all the time? Would you be okay if your parents lied to you? Those of you who work, would you be okay if about 4 or 5 times a week your boss lied to you, didn't tell you the truth? Would that be acceptable to you? If you're a boss, would you be comfortable with maybe 3 or 4 times a week you find out your employees are not being honest? The people that report to you, they're not telling you the truth. Are you okay with that? The Day America Told the Truth is a bedrock book that came out a little bit ago that said that 90% of people admitted to lying weekly. 90% admitted to not telling the truth at least once a week. Why does honesty matter? Because of what I just tried to illustrate to you. Every human relationship you have, the only way it stands is if there's truthfulness. If you can't trust what the other person is telling you, you have no relationship. I don't know what you have. You might have a contractual obligation, but you don't have a relationship. You don't have a friendship. Your house will be a disaster because kids will not trust what their parents are telling them. Parents won't trust what their kids are telling them. You want your kids to tell the truth because if they're going to succeed in life, it can't be built on lies. You want your grandkids to be able to tell the truth even to their hurt. Because without it, they won't go anywhere. They'll always be looking over their shoulder for the truth to come out. They'll always be wondering, will somebody find out? Will this come back to haunt me? You know that's true because some of you have lied. And some of you have concealed lies. And you're looking over your shoulder hoping that no one finds out. Is that how you want those you love to live? Do you want them feeling the same thoughts, same fears? Now I want to ask an honest question. How many of you here this morning have been hurt by the lies or the gossip of someone else? How many of you have felt the pain when someone else has gossiped about you, when someone else has lied about you? Would you put your hand up? Well over half of you, if you're honest. It hurts. Real people are affected by gossip and lies. People like yourself. And God calls us to live a different kind of life, and I think that's why Solomon put such an emphasis in understanding that your words have the power to tear someone down. Your words have the power to keep somebody from God. Your words have the ability to sink someone's life. Your words are strong enough that someone might take a handgun and end their life because they don't want to live with that pain. And God says we can do better. Solomon says, do not mistake. Don't be a fool and think that your words don't have weight. They do. And people that you know are listening to you and the words you say and what you say about them. And they're taking it to heart. And they're thinking this must be true because this person said this. And they're not weighing the person, they're weighing the words. And it's piercing their soul. I want to pray. Father, for those that are hurt, have been hurt by the words of others, as I want to ask you again, as I've asked all week, that you might bring healing. There are some that are probably still living out the words of a parent, of a teacher, of a coach, of an authority figure over them, and it has been to their detriment. And I want to ask once again, Lord Jesus, that through the power of your Spirit, you might break the chains that bond, that hurt, and you might set someone free. And I ask it in your name, amen. Okay, so if our words can cause death, what else can our words do? They can bring hope. They can give people life. How do we do it? Here's one way. Be a better listener. Has nothing at all to do with your tongue except that you hold it. Except that you just are not so quick to speak. You're willing to sit back and listen to the words that someone else is expressing. Gentle words are a tree of life. That's what he said there. He who answers a matter before he hears the facts, it is folly and shame to him. A lot of times it's really easy when someone rushes in with something to just assume that what they're saying is the truth. Solomon says elsewhere, a matter looks good until someone brings other information to it, and then you're like, whoa, what we talk about is context. Sometimes you don't have all the context of a story. Have you ever known someone to come in and give you the other person's side of an argument when they're fighting? What side of the argument do they give? Theirs. Yours. That's what you do, because you're trying to defend yourself. Do you ever walk in and you're looking for a neutral party and say, hey, I just want to start this conversation out, and I'm fighting with so-and-so, and here's what they're saying. No, you're going to give your side of the matter first, because you are right. Right? It's not rocket science. That's all he's saying here. If you're in that situation, how many of you have been in a study or a small group or a place at work, and gossip starts, the lies start, and it gets accepted as fact, and nobody bothers to do a fact check, And nobody says, hey, let's go get the other person and bring them in. Let's hear their side of it. We don't do that, do we? Why don't we do that? Because it's awkward, isn't it? Right? Solomon would say, wise people are always learning, always listening for fresh insights. You want to be at the top of your game? Be a listener. Be someone who takes information in. Be someone who asks good questions because you're trying to really get at what is true. How do we speak less? Here's 2 or 3 practical things that I saw. You don't have to say everything you know. If the matter comes to you, you don't have to say everything you know. You know why you do say everything you know? Because you feel important. It makes you feel good because you know. And so you're going to share what you know. What if you just bit your tongue and you don't have to tell everything that you know? You don't have to offer your opinion in everything. We are living in an age where everyone feels like because you have an opinion, it matters. It doesn't. Your opinion doesn't matter. Sometimes in work, if your boss asks you for your opinion, give it. That's perfectly acceptable. That's a good thing to do. But realize, at the end of the day, it's your opinion. It's what you think, because you're not the one really in charge of making the decision, are you? It's not really left to you. The consequences of whatever choice are not left to you. But man, we feel like, oh, here's what I think on this. You don't have to repeat everything you hear. There's a lot of stuff I hear I don't need to pass along. Why? How does it benefit someone? If you're hearing rubbish, how do you benefit? If garbage comes your way about another family member, someone in your family, probably doesn't. My family's the only one that does that nonsense. But should your family pass along garbage, why not be a garbage collector and just let it die with you? Why not challenge that person to be better? Why not say, hey, have you talked to them about it? This is an interesting thing. I always say, hey, have you talked to them about it? And I find well over half the time the person has talked to them about it. No, I can't talk to them about it. Well, really? Well, then you should stay silent, because I'm not the person that can help solve this. Right? You can stay silent. Even Solomon said, if you listen to constructive criticism, you'll be at home among the wise. If you reject criticism, you're going to harm yourself. Solomon makes a big point of saying that the person who stays silent looks smart. And some of us look terribly foolish by engaging in these conversations instead of just staying still. Words that give life, one way might be just keeping someone's reputation, protecting it, letting it stop with you instead of you being a conduit that just passes it along. Words that give people life are when we bring peace. Proverbs 15:1 says that a soft answer turns away wrath. A soft answer, a gentle answer turns away wrath. A harsh word stirs up anger. One of the things that I've learned as an umpire, as a basketball referee, is that there come moments in a contest where someone sees the world differently than I do, and they react. And so I have learned in that moment, my reaction to their reacting is going to set the tone for the rest of that contest. And I've seen situations where a coach reacts, and a referee will say, sit the, and they'll use a swear word, and they'll be, meh, and you just watch that thing blow up. And I've seen situations where a gentle answer can diffuse a situation. When someone gets in your face and they're hot-headed and they're a little bit angry, how do you respond? You feel the need to defend yourself right there in that moment? Because if you don't, who's going to have your back? Right? That's why you respond the way you do. Because if you don't stick up for yourself, who's going to stick up for you? That's what you're saying. So I've got to, boom. A hot-tempered person starts fights. A cool-tempered person stops them. Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers. How many people do we know that when a situation is brewing, we're like, bam. Some will say, man, that's just probably not the best way to go. Words can bring peace to a situation. How many of us are living in families with conflict? Because we don't have somebody in the midst of it trying to make things better. How many of you, I don't want to show hands, I'm just going to ask, how many of you are at conflict right now with somebody? I would be curious to know that. How many of you right now could honestly say you're at odds with somebody? What's the root cause? Why? What's going on? What words were said that separate you? Did somebody do something? Somebody say something? And you're still, maybe you don't stew on it every day, but the fact I brought it up just now, that name popped into your head, that's the person. What would it take to bring peace to that situation? And most of us would say this, they got to apologize. They've got to apologize. They were wrong. They've got to come to me and say they were sorry. If they come to me and say they were sorry, maybe I'll think about forgiving them. Is that what it's going to take? Have you gone? Just asking a question. Have you gone? No, I'm not going. I'm not taking the first step. Are you kidding? They did what they did. It's not up to me to take the first step. It's up to them, right? Is that what Jesus would have us do? Can you understand? This is why I think Christianity is so hard. This is why Christianity is not like any other religion. I'm not asking you to be religious. I'm not asking you to be good. I'm saying in the cause of Christ, who was the one to take the first step towards you, to make things better, he didn't do anything wrong. Why would Jesus take the first step? Why didn't Jesus wait for you to come groveling back to him? Why did Christ take the first move towards you? Because he loves you. Because that's what the bigger heart does. But you can stab people and maintain your right and draw your line in the sand and wait for them, or you can be a peacekeeper. You can be a peacemaker. And I would say to you, it starts with how you respond when someone gets in your face. The third thing that I notice is words that give life are when we cheer people on. There is one whose rash words are like a sword thrust, but, he says here, the tongue of the wise brings healing. A man has joy in an apt answer. How delightful is a timely word. When we say the right thing, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. He says in Proverbs 25 that good news from a distant land is like having a cold ice water on a hot day. Last August, I was at a softball tournament. It was one of those August weekends where we get like 100 degrees with high humidity. And I'd worked the plate. I had Gatorade. I was going, oh man, it was so hot. And there was a mom over there that's like, hey, you want an ice water? And I said, oh, I love an ice water. It was so good. Anybody like an ice water? Ian, come here. Help me out.
Yes, sir.
Hey, come in. Take some of these.
Okay.
Anybody want Coke? You took an ice water. Anybody want Coke? Legit. Ice cold Coke. Anybody want Sprite? Ice cold Sprite? Want Sprite? Come here, get it. Anybody else want ice water? Anybody want Coke over here? Bob, come get it. Ice cold Coke. It's good stuff. Anybody else want water? Coke? For the diabetics in the room? Anybody want Coke Zero? Yeah, Coke Zero. We got Coke Zero. Ice water? Coke Zero? Sprite? You want ice water? Where I see a hand? What do you want? You want Sprite? Got Sprite. Ice water over here? Coke? You're welcome. You want a water? There you go. Yeah. Coke? Coke Zero? Yeah, Coke Zero? What am I missing? Cooler full of this stuff. Because when you are thirsty, there's nothing like an ice cold drink. Right? Is it possible that the words you use can be just like that drink going down your throat? Is it possible the words you use to cheer people on, to say, hey, good job, hey, you got this, hey, I'm with you, hey, you're not in this alone, how can I help? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. I really want to know. Is it possible that your simple words that you use could be like a glass of ice water to somebody really thirsty and you wouldn't even know it? They say be kind because everyone you know is facing some kind of battle. I think that's sort of a cheesy statement. I think it's a nice hallmark statement until you get below the surface and you realize that it's generally true that almost everybody you meet is facing some kind of battle. But we don't stop long enough to listen. We don't stop long enough to ask. We're so busy with our agenda and our life and moving like we're moving that I don't have time for you. And that's why when you run into people that genuinely care and will use their words to bring life and help and healing, that person has friends. That person is wanted. That person is sought out. Because most of us are just in our own little bubble, living in our own little world. And God has something bigger for you. Jesus wants something more for you. And it can start with as simply as you watch and walk through life, looking at people and the words you use. What's the word you use to the drive-through girl at McDonald's? To the waiter or waitress that waits on you at a restaurant? What about your teacher in a classroom? What about somebody you might meet just going the other aisle at the grocery store? You can look the other way and you can ignore, or you can smile and just say, hey. You can smile and say, hi. Stuff as simple as that sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? Like, does it really make a difference? And I don't know. I can't answer that for you. I can tell you, I bet you there's a bunch of people that would say, yeah, yes, it really does make a difference. Team's coming up. The last thing that I think that we can do in giving life is when we tell other people about Jesus. Solomon said that the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that wins souls is wise. Here's a question I have for you. It's sort of curious. How many of you are following Jesus today because someone talked to you? I mean, it could have been the gospel blimp. Could have been a dream. I venture to say well over 90% of people who follow Jesus today are doing so because someone used words to communicate that Christ loved them, wanted the best for them, has forgiven them. He who wins souls is wise. Why? Because he do two things that I could think of. When we share our faith, we say to the other person, I value you. I'm not making you believe. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about twisting arms. But I am telling you that you love the other person, you value the other person enough to share that which is important. And I think you show you value Jesus when you talk about him. They say that the average Christian has not talked about their faith in the last 6 months. You've gone 6 months without talking to anybody about your faith. That's the average Christian. And I get it. We live in a time where it feels like if I talk about my faith, someone's going to put me down. You know what? They might. Any Cubs fans here? No. Because they're, no, I can't because we're broadcasting this, right? Does that stop Cubs fans from being Cubs fans? Oh, you know better. Did anybody stop being a Cubs fan because someone said they were whatever they might say? No. When we talk about our faith, I'm not saying be obnoxious. You guys know my heart. Those of you who've been around, you know my heart. I'm not saying you're being obnoxious about it. But I am saying that talking about Jesus should be natural to us as much as you talk about any other relationship you have. If you talk about your wife, you talk about your spouse, your husband, your kids, you talk about your job, let's talk about Jesus. Bring it up. How did I do that, Mike? There's been another study that said that most Christians don't know how to share their faith. So I thought, well, that makes sense. How do you start? How do you start a conversation? Ask questions. Jesus was a master at asking questions. You see stuff that's happening in the headlines, and you might simply say, hey, what do you think about that? And engage in a conversation and listen. And listen to what the other person's saying. Draw out of them what their values are, what their beliefs are. And if you're willing to do that, I've got a hunch that they're going to be willing to listen to you. They might actually say, well, what do you think about it? Oh, and then boom, there's an open door for you. But it's just being mindful. It's praying. God, would you help my ears to be open? Would my eyes be up to see people today? Looking to engage. Looking to want to hear from them. Looking to want to add life to their world. Someone valued you enough that they shared their faith with you at some point. They used words to talk to you about their faith in Jesus because you didn't have one. And it meant the world to you. And Jesus is still using that method today to introduce the next generation to him. Let's stand together. We're going to sing with these guys, and then we're out of here.